the arrival of darkness. In the desolate town of Ravenshade, where the fog clung to the cobblestone streets like spectral fingers, an unnatural silence reigned. The town, once vibrant, had fallen under a strange gloom. People vanished without a trace, livestock were found drained of blood, and an overwhelming sense of dread lingered in the air. The horror began when an ancient ship, blackened by centuries of decay, drifted into the harbor one stormy night. It carried no crew, only a single coffin hidden in the ship's hold. The townsfolk, oblivious to the nightmare within, hauled it ashore, unknowingly welcoming the curse of Nosferatu. That night, the wind howled through the streets, carrying a stench of decay. Those who lived nearest to the harbor swore they heard something moving, whispering in the dark. A young boy named Elias, whose father was among the dock workers, peeked through the cracks of his window. His breath hitched when he saw it. A shadow, impossibly tall and thin, glided down the empty streets, its elongated fingers twitching as though tasting the air. The next morning, Elias's father was missing. Only his blood-streaked cap lay on the damp cobblestones near the harbor. Whispers in the dark. Soon after the ship's arrival, people reported eerie occurrences. Shadows moved unnaturally, doors creaked open by unseen hands, and whispers slithered through the alleys when no one was there. It started with the children. They spoke of a tall, gaunt figure with elongated fingers and eyes that glowed in the moonlight. Then, the sickness came. A pale affliction that drained the color from the faces of the afflicted, leaving only sunken eyes and dry, cracked lips. But it was not sickness. It was the slow, deliberate feeding of Nosferatu, his hunger insatiable, his patience infinite. Old Widow Hargrave was the first to be found. Her house, a decrepit relic at the town's edge, had always been draped in shadows. When the baker's apprentice delivered bread to her doorstep, he found her seated in her rocking chair, her skin ashen, her eyes wide with terror. Her lips were parted in a silent scream, her veins blackened. The town's physician could not explain the cause of death, but Father Elric knew. He had seen the signs before in a town long forgotten, a town erased from history. The first victims. One by one, the townspeople fell. First, the beggars and the unseen, then the lonely and the forgotten. Each night, a new body was found, its skin cold, its veins emptied. Those who witnessed the horror swore they saw something slithering across their bedroom walls, an impossibly thin creature with fingers like knives and a face of death itself. The priest, Father Elric, knew what had come to Ravenshade. He recognized the signs from the forbidden texts of the Vatican. Nosferatu had come, and with him, the town's fate was sealed. The town's butcher, a burly man known as Gregor, vowed to put an end to the terror. Armed with his cleaver, he patrolled the streets after dark. His wife pleaded with him to stay inside, but he refused. On the third night, his screams shattered the silence. The next morning, his body was found hanging from the butcher's sign. His flesh shriveled, his eyes removed from their sockets. The unholy hunt. As the town's fear escalated, a desperate resistance emerged. Armed with torches and crude weapons, the bravest souls set out to hunt the creature. They followed the trail of decay to an abandoned manor at the edge of town, a place untouched for over a century. There, in the cellar, they found the coffin, rotted, ancient, and emanating an unholy presence. But before they could strike, a low guttural growl filled the air, and Nosferatu emerged. His grotesque form unfolded from the shadows, his elongated limbs moving with inhuman grace. His yellowed fangs gleamed as he struck, tearing through flesh as if it were paper. The hunters screamed, but their cries were swallowed by the abyss. Blood coated the walls of the manor as the survivors fled, their torches extinguished by an unseen force. The shadows seemed to pulse, whispering ancient secrets of hunger and despair. Nosferatu did not merely kill, he fed on fear itself, savoring the terror that filled the hearts of his prey. Those who escaped would never be the same. The unraveling mind. Survivors spoke in hushed, broken whispers. Those who had faced Nosferatu directly were never the same. Their eyes flickered with unseen horrors, their skin crawled as though unseen insects writhed beneath it. Father Elric, desperate for salvation, turned to the oldest scriptures, searching for a way to end the nightmare. He uncovered a horrifying truth. Nosferatu was not merely a vampire. He was the first of his kind, a being spawned from darkness itself, a nightmare that predated humanity. killing him was not an option. Banishment was the only hope. But to do so required a sacrifice, one that no man was willing to make. In the dead of night, Elric found himself at the church altar, whispering prayers in a trembling voice. The candles flickered, their flames shrinking as if suffocated by an unseen force. A deep, guttural laughter echoed through the chapel. Nosferatu was there, watching, waiting. He would not be so easily cast away. The ritual of blood. As the town crumbled into chaos, the survivors gathered for the last stand. The priest prepared the ritual, inscribing the symbols of the old gods onto the cathedral's stone floor. The plan was simple: lure Nosferatu into the cathedral and use sacred incantations to trap him. The bait was chosen: Elric himself. As the bells tolled midnight, Nosferatu arrived, his hollow eyes locked onto the priest. Shadows writhed like living entities around him as he advanced. The ritual began, the air crackling with unnatural energy. But the creature was cunning. He would not be trapped so easily. The cathedral's candles flickered, the walls bled black ichor, and reality itself seemed to warp as Nosferatu fought back with a power far beyond mortal comprehension. The eternal curse. The ritual succeeded, partially. Nosferatu was banished, but not without consequence. The town, cursed beyond repair, withered into obscurity. Ravenshade became a ghost town, abandoned and forgotten, its streets forever shrouded in fog. Those who had survived found themselves haunted, their shadows moving when they stood still, their dreams filled with Nosferatu's whispering voice. The priest, having sacrificed his soul to complete the ritual, disappeared without a trace. But legends say that in the darkest corners of the world, Nosferatu still lingers. Watching, waiting, hungering. The horror was never truly vanquished, it merely slumbered, biding its time until the night called once more. Nosferatu is eternal, and he will return.